All right, guys, it's been a while since I've made a video, but we're going to get into this a little bit. It's a 68 Dodge Charger come around, as you can see. Another shop was doing a Hemi swap on it, and a lot of stuff was messed up, which we'll cue to some of that right now. Or may not. So we welded this piece onto the drive-by-wire, crooked as fuck to begin with. So it's got a nut there, a little roller there. Oh yeah, that goes into that. That goes into a couple bolts there, and the whole cable moves when you open and close it, other than the open wires everywhere and all this stuff, and those cool grounds right there, and that mess, and that mess. The tranny lines laying on the frame. The fuel lines are made out of plumbing parts for a water fountain. There's an air pressure regulator for the fuel. The lines are on the torsion bars, no soft line in between, so it'll just break. Fuel lines run down the side of the car with zip ties. Fuel pressure regulators on the side of the frame laying on the muffler, along with the return line is laying on the exhaust. I could keep going for days. And then that vacuum line's glued to that vacuum line. With that one doing something, and I don't even know where this goes. It's just glued on. Some more open wires. Plug and play harness. And yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know why they had this kill switch in there. It comes off the battery and then this black tape to like whatever. Trans controllers just kind of dangling around. Ignition modules dangling around. That's dangling around. We don't believe in rubber grommets in the firewall. We just punch a giant. All right, and so I got 90% of this tore out already, as it was a haggard mess, and started cleaning everything up. Got some of these fittings coming. Got a lot of parts on order so we can properly do the seal system, hook up the regulator and all that stuff in the electrical. Remove the original starter solenoid off the firewall that was going from a starter solenoid to another starter solenoid with the newer starter, which would eventually latch and then just crank over nonstop. So we're going to fix that issue. We're going to be fixing a lot of the electrical issue. I got the battery tray out of here. We're going to be relocating the battery in the back and cleaning this engine bay up substantially because it was a rat's nest as well as the inside. I've got the Holly pulled out of here, wiring over here for now. We're going to address the shifter, the Dakota Digital dash parts, get all this tucked away and all that stuff, fix the carpet, and you know, fix a lot of the stuff they had complete disregard for on this car. Such a beautiful car to do this and, you know, be proud of anything that they did. So yeah, so right now I'm going to work on getting this radiator out and the fuel tank out, because we're getting an EFI fuel tank for this thing like it should have, so it doesn't get any fuel slosh or stuff like that, suck air into the fuel system, all that type of stuff that happens with a carbureted tank with no baffles in it. So I already started pulling a lot of that stuff out. Cue to me pulling the regulator out and the way that it was hooked. Yeah. It may be hard to hear me, but that's the fuel pressure regulator on the muffler that should be in the engine bay under the hood with a vacuum line attached to it. And then the fuel pump up there and the return line laying on the muffler. This should have an EFI tank in it. It doesn't. The lines are just zip tied on, laying on the torsion bar, rubbing through. No soft line anywhere. All right, I'm going to give everybody a lesson on fuel pressure regulators. This thing was pouring gas out of the exhaust pipe when I went to try and start it a couple times. I had to do a flood clear, and this guy thought the crank position sensor was going bad. No, you're just hydro-locking the motor. When you hook your fuel pump up to a fuel pressure regulator, fuel goes in the side here, not in the bottom. And no matter how far you back this nut off, if you've got your fuel pressure coming in the bottom where it's supposed to be going to your return, it's going to run whatever the pump feels like. I don't care how far you turn this nut out. So quick lesson when you're using this stuff, use it properly. Know what you're doing. Like not doing engine swaps if you can't hook up a fuel pressure regulator the right way. So yeah, cool. So anyways, with that going on, was dropping the tank and the rest of the fuel system and getting the other pump out and stuff like that. So let me get right to this, and then we'll come right back with a little bit of an update of where we are. All right, so we're getting a little bit farther here. We got the radiator out and all that stuff. Welded this filler neck closed, so we're not bypassing the radiator anymore. We're going to address this power steering, probably move it over there. But we're digging into the wiring now. Whatever this other shop did, they just kind of twisted the wires together. This is the cam position sensor. Pretty necessary to run the car. So they just twisted the wires together. They put shrink tube over it and didn't even shrink tube it. So we got to do that. We got to do the coolant temperature sensor. Go through all these connectors to the fuel injectors. They did the same thing all the way around. So I'm going to be digging into that. And then I'm trying to figure out where I want to mount the ECU. I was hoping I had enough wire to get it under the seat here. It looks like we're not going to. We may still have to go under the center console. I want to try and get the original center console in this car. So hopefully I can take that Dakota digital dash stuff and get it up under the dash. And the trans controller would fit under the original console, which I did find, but we're going to have to address the shifter and stuff like that. There should be enough room to hide some stuff under that, but I'm going to have to play around with that first. But first things first, is I got to fix this harness under the, or on the engine. And yeah, so there's a lot for me to go through and rebutt connect and shrink tube and all that good stuff. So let me dig right into this and we'll be right back. All right, so we got the wiring all fixed for the main Holly harness anyways, other than the TPS, because we're going to be swapping out this throttle body. We may be swapping out the entire intake manifold due to how they did the kick down and throttle, as you saw earlier. I don't know, see if we can see this or not. So this isn't going to work, what's going on in here. So yeah, it's tough to see. I'll have to get a light. So they have the kick down with a nut and bolt on the throttle pedal and the other throttle linkage. So we're going to have to be changing all that because it's not going to work. And then we have to address the shifter. That's bad, everything. So we got to address that. But the wiring under the hood, other than running the headlights and horn and washer bottle and stuff like that, and the starter signal down, is done. Gonna rebutton that all up because it's kind of hideous. And the hood lights, which I don't know why you'd put a stinger screw here, and these are all gonna rot, these fittings. So we're gonna fix that. We got a radiator coming. We have the whole fuel system coming. Hopefully some parts start showing up tomorrow. And then we can start getting things correct on this car. At least with the fuel system, we have all the parts coming for the fuel system. Gonna just be running a Corvette regulator fuel filter and basic non-return system up here, and all AN fittings, all that stuff. So hopefully it's all going to show up tomorrow and we can get a little bit farther on this thing. And I'll point out a lot more screw job on this thing as we get farther into it. It's kind of devastating how anybody could let this leave in the state that it was in. Thank God they never got it running, because like I said, you move this throttle, being an electronic throttle body and trying to cob job it like this, it never returns and closes all the way. See? So the throttle would have stuck open on this and stuff, and there's no idle control. So it would have just either died or whatever. So, all right. So hopefully some parts show up tomorrow and we get a little bit farther. Okay, we're back at it. Unfortunately, they sent an email back saying the fuel tank for the Charger is going to be 3 weeks out. But as I walk around the car, I keep finding more and more, like I said. And we've got all this wiring that they just kind of left bare, strapped around through the entire car, as you can see. And then we've got stuff like the headlight buckets are actually loose and we're missing nuts and bolts. So we're going to be going through bolt checking and fixing this harness. He told me he's got some dim lights over here and stuff like that. And this harness is all messed up. I'm going to clean up all the grounds, retape up all of the harness like factory again, and get it all square. We're also going to be mounting the battery back here while we're waiting. And some of the cool stuff is it's all bare metal, so we're going to be putting some primer on that, and it's on both sides all around. So we're going to be putting some primer on that and putting some rubberized undercoating on it after we get this battery mount made. Because I'm just going to make a mount for this, probably put it right here, and then run the wires up to the starter, and then from the starter to the alternator, and from the starter up to the main power to the car. So let's get into this and see how much we can improve upon the joke of this wiring. Oh, and then we're going to bolt the steering column down too, because apparently they can't do that as well. So like I said, we're going to keep finding more and more and more wrong with this, and we're just going to keep fixing it. So let me get to it. All right, we're back. Next day, did get some parts in. We got the swap radiator that also has the transmission cooler in it. Awesome. We got a bunch of the fuel line components. So we're going to get this radiator in just to get it out of the way so it doesn't get tripped over and all that stuff. Did start cleaning up all this wiring, like I said, in the front. Got all the crap out of here. The pisser tank and overflow bottle and stuff that doesn't belong up here. And that's all out. Started working on figuring out where I'm going to mount the power steering, because it's not going there anymore, because we're going to be building an aluminum intake to come off and over out and then have actual cold air. So we got all that done anyways, and oh, I closed the trunk. So I made a battery bracket, got it mounted here in this rear quarter panel, and got it around the wire. Wire's already made, just gotta run it through the car. So we're moving along pretty good now until we run out of parts again. So we're gonna get this radiator in. I gotta figure out the fittings, and yeah, here we go. So didn't mention it before. Those are the lines that are on the transmission now. Those are gonna end up getting switched. But yeah, we're getting rid of this bullshit. How could you even do this shit? Like, this dude needs to be beaten. Actually should be taking a small claims court for the work that he did on this car. So let's get into this a little bit and we'll update it. All right, for our update here, now they got a couple extra parts in. We got this radiator mounted. Did it with some riv nuts and some spacers, because we went with the 26-inch core, and started making the fan shroud, which we're putting a Spale 16-inch 3000 CFM fan on it. This is going to be gone. We got the 45-degree adapter, since that was going to ultimately fail anyways, with some Gates heater hoses on an oil filter relocation kit. And got fittings coming, 45-degree M16 by 1.5 fitting to 6A on there, and the 1/2-inch 20 to 6A on that. And we're just going to make a quick hydraulic hose. The power steering is going to be fixed permanently. No compression fittings and stuff in there with the funkery. Just used a regular stock hose for the top here, and then found one of the hoses on AutoZone shelf for the bottom, and then hooked up the tranny cooler lines to that. So like I said, that tranny cooler is gone in the front of this thing. So the other big thing that did come in that we're going to be touching base on right now is I made this little harness to go to the alternator, and these alternators are computer controlled. People don't realize that. Whoever did this swap, well, I know who did it, but we're not going to get into that right now. These are computer controlled alternators. The voltage regulator isn't built into the alternator. So you need to get a voltage regulator. This is an adjustable voltage regulator right there if you want to get one yourself, and then you can adjust your voltage output on the back there. And I've already riv nutted the firewall and put an extra ground in, because we use riv nuts. We don't just run stinger screws into everything like this car had on it before. And then that's just bolting right there. The harness is running up, to the alternator that I made here. See the alternator plug on one side, voltage regulator on the other, and then this is your 12-volt source with the ignition switch, which we can probably patch right into the Holly harness on that, or I can go into that as I've sorted through most of this wiring. So other than that, we're on a big standstill for parts. All our AN fittings are back ordered and stuff. We're deciding on what we want to do with this intake manifold, if we want to switch to a fabricated one with a GM throttle body or just get the cable throttle body. They're both around the same price, however we do it. And then we've got this. I'm also going to riv nut and mount in the firewall right in here, which is going to feed the two fuel rails, and the pressure sensor for the Holly is going to go right in there. And then our aluminum line is going to come up to this and then split. But we're waiting on all the parts for that. I have the aluminum line and stuff, but we're waiting for our fuel filter, which we're using a GM Corvette fuel filter regulator in one. Just be a little cost effective on this. So that's where we're at in this. And unfortunately, I got a bunch of nuts and bolts that I got to go through and check on the battery. Or not the battery, but put it on. That was the other thing that we started doing. So I started running the cable for the battery. This is nowhere near done, but we got plug kits coming for the trunk since I never put them back in. Started making a battery deal here. This just bolts on there, and the battery's held down, and the cables all ran and all that good stuff. I mean, halfway ran. But like I said, we're going to be on a standstill here, so I'm going to be nut and bolting this thing, and then we'll come back to more videos on this when more parts come in. But that's where we're at for now. Thanks for watching, guys. This was kind of a disaster of a project, and I just wanted to point out, things that people shouldn't do on these cars. It's a beautiful car to wreck this thing and do that to it, and then charge somebody the type of money that he did to basically have a non-running car that would have never ran. And if it did, he probably would have ended up in a tree, in a ditch, dead. Yeah, just be careful who you go to. But anyways, like and subscribe, comment, and see you guys next time.